Make Walters your spot, not only before and after every game at Nationals Park, but Walters also is right by Audi Field, and DC United, the Washington Spirit, and the DC Defenders are all in season.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat, emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Sleep Number's new collections are designed to adapt to the changing nature of your life and your sleep needs. Whether it's the personalized comfort of the new Comfort Mode mattress, the targeted pressure relief of the Comfort Next mattress, or the Climate Collection that actively cools or warms to help you fall asleep and stay asleep.
And now, get early access to our biggest sale of the year. Save 25% on the new Comfort Next Luxe for a limited time. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
James gonna go on the IL. Hopefully close to a minimum stay.
I mean, it's tough not being able to be out there, but yeah, I mean, it's just something to grow from.
Now the set, the kick and the pitch. Swinging a ground ball, first base line, off the glove of the diving Chaparro and down the right field line. Turner around third, he'll score. Harper heading for third and heading for second and in with a double is Luis Arise. Cruz throwing the ball to Chaparro along the first base line. Phillies 2 and the Nationals nothing.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Killian kicks and deals. Strike 3 called. Taina's going to challenge. For the moment, the game's over. We'll wait to make sure. The crowd doesn't like this. Now the game's over. Pitch was all in the strike zone. And for the first time since April 28th, the Nationals are shut out. The Phillies win it 5-0.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He is at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. And the Washington Nationals now have lost 7 consecutive games and now have outfielder James Wood on the 10-day injured list. Tuesday was not a good day. A 5-0 loss at the Philadelphia Phillies on Tuesday evening in Game 2 of a 4-game series. The Nats now have lost 7 consecutive games, including being 0-6 on this road trip comprised of 2 4-game series at the top 2 teams in the National League East in the division-leading Atlanta Braves and Philadelphia Phillies. So the Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 55-60 with a run differential of +8. As yes, that run differential is flirting with going back to being in negative territory. And the Nats on Tuesday evening announced having put outfielder James Wood on the 10-day injured list due to a left oblique strain. And, of course, the Nats in the lead-up to the 2026 MLB trade deadline, which was on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, traded away 3 key guys in infielder Curtis Mead, first baseman Luis Garcia Jr., and starting pitcher Foster Griffin. Now, you could always email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We on Tuesday night got this email from Paul Frampton. Writes Paul, "What a disappointment this past week has been for the Nats. The front office unloaded 2 bats for a handful of half-decent prospects with low ceilings. James Wood is on the IL. The team demotes relievers when the relievers are doing well, and we're still having to watch Littell and Mikolas every 5 days. It kind of feels like we're being punished as fans. We're not allowed to have nice things. What's the point in watching anymore? Nats fans have been wallowing in losses since 2019, and by the time this team finally looks good, the team will deal away CJ and James Wood just like the team has with all of the other studs. I don't see any solution that does not include the Lerners selling the team. It's the only way to fix this team. I am so frustrated with this franchise, and I don't know what to do about it. Maybe it's time to turn the Nats off for the remainder of the season. The frustration is just too much to handle." Thank you for the email, Paul. Whatever you do, do not stop listening to this podcast. But Paul, we hear you. Things are not going well for the Nats right now. Mark, the Nats have 47 games left in this regular season. A lot can happen. A lot can change. But you got to wonder if we are going to look back at the last week or so as when the Nats 2026 season essentially ended.
Whew, that was a dire message in the email. And, it's hard to refute a lot of what he said. And yeah, this week has been the turning point for them, and not in a good way, at least not in a good way if you believed that they could keep this up all season long. And even if they didn't make it to the playoffs, at least stay in contention and keep the positive feelings going all the way through September. What I would be interested in, and I understand why as an organization, they're not going to come out and say this yet and maybe not even do it yet. But I think we're getting close to the point where it would actually be okay for them to acknowledge this. The focus for the rest of 2026 probably shouldn't be on 2026 anymore. It should be on 2027. And that should include what their lineup decisions are. It should include who is getting starts, who's not getting starts, who's being used out of the bullpen, who's not being used out of the bullpen, who's getting called up from AAA and who's not. I understand these are competitors. They want to believe that one bad week is not going to erase everything they've done, and that there certainly have been teams around the majors in recent years with this new wildcard format who have looked finished much deeper into the season than this is and went on a run in September and made it to the playoffs. So I get all that. But I think you have to acknowledge what the situation is here. And it's not just the fact that they've lost 7 in a row. It's that they've chosen to trade away 3 of their best players this season. They've now seen their best player go on the IL. And even if it's a short stint, it's still going to be out for a while. I don't think most people would be too upset if they showed with their actions on the field that they are now looking ahead and not going all in on trying to win each game this year. Because I think what the front office has done in the last week to 10 days mirrors that. The front office is essentially saying we're looking forward. So maybe it's time for everybody on the field to start treating it the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Nats would have to say anything. I think it's just what you do. And as the team continues to fade, you certainly have to say to yourself, like, yeah, the focus does need to be more on the future than on the present. And in a lot of ways, you already feel like the focus is on the future and not the present. Now, regarding the James Wood news, so he's on the 10-day injured list due to a left oblique strain. We, on the last installment of the podcast, talked about the possibility of this happening. He got injured on a swing in the top of the 7th of the Nats 6-3 loss at the Phillies on Monday evening. First time, by the way, that Wood has gone on an injured list since making his MLB regular season debut in July 2024. An MRI exam revealed what manager Blake Butera called a, quote, subtle, mild, end quote, left oblique strain. The Nats, in announcing the transaction, only called the injury a left oblique strain. The word subtle did not appear in the release. The word mild did not appear in the release.
Subtle, mild oblique strain on the left side. We think it won't be very extreme, but we do think it'll take at least the 10 days, which is why we're in IL.
Yeah, just like a really minor strain, and they're putting me on the IL, but obviously we'll just take one day at a time.
Doesn't sound too bad, but as we know, oblique injuries are notoriously stubborn. There very much is a tendency when a player, especially a key player, goes on an injured list to paint as rosy of a picture as possible. So the way I look at this is we just have to wait and see how severe this injury is. But I would not be betting money on like when Wood will be back. Hopefully it is soon. But we've danced this dance before where we get told an injury isn't that big of a deal, and then it ends up being a much bigger deal than anticipated. To say nothing again of the nature of this injury, oblique injury. We know how the oblique injury can be, and that is it can take longer than anticipated to heal.
Yeah, 100%. And, I do believe them when they say that they think this is relatively mild and that they were encouraged that it wasn't anything worse than that. That doesn't mean it just heals overnight. And as we've discussed, this is not the kind of injury that you can do much for. You really just have to rest, avoid any kind of activities that might aggravate it. And whenever you're finally given the green light to go ahead and advance in what you're doing, you do it. And it very often takes quite a while for that to heal. It's not a simple injury. And, let it play out here for a few days. If within 4 or 5 days, he's like, hey, everything feels great. And they tell him, okay, go ahead. Why don't you try to take a swing? Why don't you try to run the bases, whatever that might be, and everything comes out fine, then okay, speed up the timeline. Maybe it could be a short stint. But I hate to say this, but given the events of the last week for the team, I don't think they should be in a rush to get him back. It's not worth the risk of something even worse happening. I know he's the best player on the team, but I don't know that James Wood alone is going to turn all their fortunes around. I mean, they lost the first 6 games over the last week with him in the lineup. So is his presence going to completely change everything or not? I don't think they are just a James Wood away from getting back into contention right now. So, yeah, I do think they should be careful with it, understanding it could take a little while. And I think that maybe should help frame their decisions as they move forward. The timing, you could not have had this happen at a worse time, obviously, but maybe there's some higher power trying to speak to them and saying, hey, guys, it's been a great 4 months. It's been fun. We're trying to tell you now it's not happening this year, and that's okay.
I mean, the team that has enjoyed this insanely good injury luck with position players, the team that has put one position player on an injured list all season, the backup catcher, Drew Millis, now all of a sudden has to put the team's arguably best player on an injured list in such a pivotal part of the season. It's amazing how this works. And the offense, right, which was so good and which seemed to be so loaded in terms of guys having good seasons. Now, Curtis Meade gone, Luis Garcia Jr. gone, James Wood on the 10-day injured list. Like, just like that, 3 huge bats in this lineup no longer available to the Nats, at least for the time being. And you look at this 7-game losing streak, the offense is the thing. I mean, no, the pitching has not been perfect. The Nats have scored a total of 16 runs over these 7 games. This offense, which had been awesome, has just gone completely cold. It is crazy to say this, but I'm going to say this, like, it's stunning to see this because the offense had been so good and so consistent. You know, like, in the backs of our minds, we probably should have expected this at some point, but the offense had been so good, you were kind of like, at least I was kind of like, I don't know that we're going to ever get the prolonged slump. Now it feels like we're getting that. 16 runs over 7 games, all of which have been losses. The Nats on Tuesday evening, no runs, just 5 hits, which were 2 doubles and 3 singles, just 2 walks. 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position. The situation with runners in scoring position has become ridiculous. And 9 strikeouts. The Nats got work by Philly starting pitcher and former Nats prospect Jesus Luzardo. 8 scoreless innings, 7 strikeouts. CJ Abrams and Harry Ford did halfway decent. Abrams is the Nats starting DH and cleanup batter, 2 for 4, double and a single. Ford as the Nats starting catcher and number 5 batter, 1 for 3, double and a walk. But man, this was a feeble offensive performance by the Nats.
As you said, 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position, now 3 for 45 on this road trip. 3 for 45 with runners in scoring position. It's almost impossible to believe that that could be the case. But this is what happens when you remove 3 of your 4 best hitters from the lineup. James Wood, I know, this was the first game that he missed. He's now out. Luis Garcia now out. And obviously Curtis Meade has been out for a while. And I feel like throughout those 4 months where the offense looked so good, I know they were getting contributions from a lot of people, and it wasn't just the big names, but they were getting a ton of production from their best hitters, especially the top half of the lineup. And I think that took the pressure off of everybody else. And what you see now, everybody is trying to fill that gap and be the guy to come through for them. And the at-bats are just not good. They're not drawing walks. They're not working the count. They're not hitting the ball hard. They're hitting the ball on the ground a lot. The worst thing that can happen to the Nationals right now is to get a leadoff double. It's like a guarantee that runner is not going to score. And we've seen this happen. I've lost track of how many times on this road trip that's been the case. It's both a combination of who they have left at this point, playing for them every day, but I think it's also a mental thing. There's a block in there that they know the situation and they're all trying to get them out of this, and I think it's only making it worse.
Yeah, the home runs have completely disappeared. The Nats are not homering at nearly the rate that we had seen the team homer, and without James Wood, the lineup does look so different. I mean, you had Dylan Cruz in the James Wood role as starting right fielder and number 1 batter. Cruz in this game going 0 for 4. I wonder this. CJ Abrams, I know, has done so well as the cleanup batter, but with Wood out, do you think the Nats would entertain putting Abrams in the James Wood spot and having Abrams in that leadoff spot, in that number 1 spot, game in and game out, as we have seen James Wood be?
I just don't think you want to mess with a good thing right now. Is that worth it? You'd still, look, Abrams, got on base twice in this game, got himself in a scoring position twice in this game, and the guys behind him did nothing. So having him hit leadoff, is that going to make any difference other than maybe giving him one extra at bat at the end of the game, depending on how the game goes and who comes up and all that? I just don't think you want to mess around with what he's got going on right now. It's on the others to deliver, and you just got to find the right ones and put them in the right spots to hope that it works. I'll be curious against a right-hander. Do they do it with Cruz leading off? If not, who else are you going to put there? If it's a lefty, is it Dalen Lyle? Is it Abimelec Ortiz? I wouldn't think he profiles as a leadoff hitter. I really don't know what the answer to that one will be, but I just don't think it's worth it to change. The one good thing you've got going right now offensively is still CJ Abrams, and I don't want to mess with that. He's been a leadoff hitter throughout his career. He was not nearly as productive as he has been now. I'm not sure what difference that really makes. You're still going to have to ask other guys to drive him in, whether he's batting first or batting fourth.
Yeah, you just would be getting your best hitter more plate appearances. I mean, that would be the idea. And maybe you would be operating in first innings where the leadoff guy is getting on base and, you can maybe make something happen that way. I mean, Abrams, yes, has done well in that 4 spot. He has done well in that 4 spot with James Wood in the number 1 spot and with Luis Garcia Jr. in the number 2 spot. So it's different now for CJ Abrams in that number 4 spot. But there's no doubt it is step-up time for Dylan Cruz. It is step-up time for Brady House. It is step-up time for Dalen Lyle. I mean, I think you look at those 3 guys and there is real onus on them to get going here, especially Cruz and especially House. Lyle, I think maybe the conversation's a little different, but it is past the point of Dylan Cruz really, truly getting going. And with Brady House, you really want to see him emerge here in this latest stint at the major league level. The opportunity could not be clearer. And, we'll just have to wait and see. But, this game on Tuesday evening, not especially encouraging.
If your business runs on 5 different apps, 12 browser tabs, and 1 spreadsheet that everyone's afraid to touch, it's probably time for Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that connects every part of your business into one powerful, easy-to-use platform. So instead of wasting time switching between disconnected systems, your entire business works together in real time. Your team moves faster, your data stays accurate, and you can actually focus on growing your business. Let one unified system run your entire business. From the first opportunity to the final payment, everything works together in one place. Whether you're a small business or managing a large operation, Odoo gives you one flexible platform built to grow with you. Learn more at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Sleep Number's new collections are designed to adapt to the changing nature of your life and your sleep needs. Whether it's the personalized comfort of the new Comfort Mode mattress, the targeted pressure relief of the Comfort Next mattress, or the Climate Collection that actively cools or warms to help you fall asleep and stay asleep.
And now, get early access to our biggest sale of the year. Save 25% on the new Comfort Next Luxe for a limited time. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
2-1 to Pinckney, breaking ball, drilled out to right field. Clifford sprints back on this. It's over his head, has a chance to go, and it's gone! Pinckney with an opposite field home run. And the Red Wings strike first, 1-0, Rochester.
Yeah, just trying to wrap my head around the fact that I'm headed to Philadelphia to play the Phillies.
The corresponding roster move to the Nats putting James Wood on the 10-day injured list was the Nats selecting the contract of outfielder Andrew Pinckney from AAA Rochester. Do you expect to see a lot of him in the coming days?
I would think probably we'll see him against lefties. And you said, well, then why wasn't he in there on Tuesday facing Jesus Luzardo? He literally didn't arrive to the ballpark until the 2nd inning. So he was on the bus from Rochester to Scranton and found out at about 2:30, as soon as they pulled up, Matt Lecroy, the Rochester manager, said, "Hey, Pinckney, you gotta go to Philly. You've been called up."
We were about to go to the hitters meeting, and Skip just said, "Hey, you gotta get out of here." So I ran to the hotel, got my stuff, and ran here. So here we are.
And had to get a car to come down here, fought traffic, Next thing you know, he's showing up after the game had already started. And he was available off the bench. The situation didn't come up for it. He's a right-handed hitter. I could see him starting against lefties. I would think because they do have three, starting caliber outfielders in Cruz, Lyle, and Young, that those guys will get the bulk of the at-bats. But you might as well get a look at Pinckney at some point, see what he can do. He's had decent success as both a power and speed combo at AAA. He plays a really good outfield, can play all three positions. The biggest knock on him is probably a lot of swing and miss. It's a 31% strikeout rate at AAA the last 2 seasons. But a guy who's kind of been blocked for a few years now with all these great young outfielders they have in their system, and he's finally going to get a chance. We'll see what he can make of it and how much he will get from that. But this is not the top prospect in the organization, anything like that. He's been waiting his time. He's got it now. Hopefully he can do something with it.
Age 25 season was taken by the Nats in the 4th round of the 2023 MLB first-year player draft out of the University of Alabama. By the way, and this may seem like a silly question, but in a situation like with Pinckney's, where he has to drive to where the Nats are, and it's, in theory, a stressful drive, a rush drive, is he literally driving himself, or do the Nats have like a car service drive him? Do you know how that works?
I meant to ask that, and I thought about that after we had finished interviewing him because I was curious. He was talking about texting all his friends and family, letting them know. I'm going to hope that meant that he was in the back seat and somebody else was driving, and he wasn't doing that while driving himself, or at least would have talk to text as he was doing it. I'm not 100% sure of that. I would think in a circumstance like that, when it's not his own car, like there have been stories of guys who got called up and they have their own car in Rochester and they have enough time, they'd find out the night before, whatever, and then they drive themselves to D.C. This just happened to be, they're playing in Scranton, which isn't that far from Philadelphia. I guess there was some traffic as well because it was rush hour, and they're on the road. So there's no reason for him to bring his own car, which he didn't have anyways, I don't believe. So I'm going to guess that somebody drove him and that he wasn't doing it himself, but it was a scramble. I mean, this was not planned for. They didn't get the news for sure on Wood until this afternoon, and that's when they told him. You could say, hey, why not let him know the night before just in case? Maybe they could have done that, but yeah, he raced to get here, and he said it was kind of a whirlwind, and it took a little while till he got here, was in the dugout kind of looking around, and it sort of all sunk in.
Yeah, I mean, one of the worst feelings in life is when you are in a rush, you are driving, and you don't know where you're going. And if all three of those things were in effect, you don't want that for a key young player as he's about to potentially play for you in a big game. So hopefully there was some sort of car service provided to Andrew Pinckney. Well, the Nats in this 5-0 loss at the Phillies on Tuesday evening used an opener who was relief pitcher Carson Palmquist, and things did not go well. Things are not going well for Carson Palmquist as an opener. He allowed 1 run in a third of an inning. He, in the bottom of the first, retired just one of the 4 batters he faced, gave up a 1-out single by ex-Nat Trey Turner to center field, issued a 1-out walk of ex-Nat Bryce Harper, and gave up a 1-out opposite field RBI double by Luis Arraez to left center field to put the Phillies up 1-0. We have talked about this, but Palmquist as an opener, it's just not working. Now, I'll grant you the sample size isn't enormous, but 5 starts, ERA of 10.45, whip of 1.94. And I'll bring this up again. The Nats miss relief pitcher PJ Poulin, who has been their best opener this season. But Palmquist, the results when anyone other than Poulin has opened have been mixed at best. With Palmquist, the results really have not been good. So we had what we had with Carson Palmquist, and then starting pitcher Zack Littell came into the game to serve as the Nats bulk pitcher. 4 runs in 6 2/3 innings. He gave up 7 hits, which were 2 doubles and 5 singles, issued a walk, recorded just 2 strikeouts, 93 pitches, 60 strikes, 33 balls. Bottom of the third, 3 runs on 2 doubles, a single, a walk, and an RBI sac fly. Bottom of the 7th, allowed a run on 2 singles. And I know a thought that I had during the game. You just expressed this thought at the top of the show. As the Nats are in the position that they are in, and if in fact the team is fading, Zack Littell, Miles Mikolas in the starting pitching rotation, is there any real meaning? Is there any real purpose to moving forward with this? Littell is on a 1-year contract with a mutual option for the 2027 season. Mikolas is on a 1-year contract. There's no point in these guys continuing to be in the rotation if the team continues to fade and the Nats have no plans to bring back either guy. I think you got to wonder, how much longer do we see Littell and Mikolas as the Nats starting pitchers / bulk pitchers?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's kind of one of the things I'm alluding to with that opening remark that I had. And I think this is an interesting test of the new front office versus the old one. We knew that the old front office for the last several years, they would hope that somebody in that position would pitch well enough to maybe have some trade value come the end of July. And then when that didn't happen, they very often were just willing to hang on to them for the rest of the year. Some of that was having not really viable options to replace them. I'm not sure the Nats are 100% in a position to do that right now, especially the Griffin trade leaves things kind of a mess in their rotation. You know, they're going to have to figure out somebody to start on Thursday. That was Griffin's spot. Andrew Alvarez was called up and he started Monday, but he obviously can't come back again on Thursday. So they're either going to have to do a bullpen game or call somebody else up to make that start. So I'll be curious how this goes. But I think once that settles and they have everybody lined up where they need to be, I think there's a very valid question about at least one, if not both, of those two veteran starters and saying, are what they providing you more valuable than whatever you might get from somebody who could have a future in the organization? And I'll be very interested to see how this front office approaches something like that, because it could be a significant change from what we've seen here in the past, or they may just take the exact same approach and saying, well, we're going to keep trotting them out there. We paid them and we're not giving up on this season yet. We think they could turn it around, and we'd rather have them eating innings than some young pitcher who's not quite ready yet. I hope that's not the case. I would be more interested in seeing some potential young arms, but we're going to have to see how they handle that.
I would be really surprised if the Nats, now being in on analytics and being forward-thinking, adopt the thinking of the previous regime on this. I mean, that would be a real surprise. And if we don't see different behavior, then I think you got to wonder if maybe, there's some reluctance from ownership for the team to lessen the roles of Littell and Mikolas, because not doing that is not at all in accordance with the way a guy like Paul Taboni thinks. Another aspect of what's happening right now, we haven't really talked about this all that much, but the Nats have not had an off day in forever. The last off day was July 23rd. The Nats are in the midst of a stretch of 17 consecutive days with games, 17 games in 17 days, no scheduled off day until this coming Monday, August 10th. I mean, you talk about when it rains, it pours. You trade away 3 key guys. You have a 7-game losing streak. You're in a brutal run in terms of opposition, right? 8-game road trip, 4-game series at Atlanta, 4-game series at Philadelphia. James Wood is on the 10-day injured list. And, oh, by the way, you're in the midst of 17 games in 17 days. I mean, it's remarkable how this all came together. The confluence of circumstances here all coming together. And, there is that alternate universe, right, of like, what if the Nats hadn't traded away anyone? What if the Nats had acquired bullpen help a few weeks ago? What would things look like right now? I've had those thoughts. I'm sure everyone listening has had those thoughts. But man, like, you could not have scripted things much worse for the team in terms of things coming apart at this moment in time. Just all of these things coming together and putting the Nats in a really tough spot to where they have gone from having been over 500 for weeks to now being 5 games under 500.
And you did know this was coming. And it's why we've talked about, hey, this is going to be such a critical stretch for them. Going on the road, facing these two opponents in 4-game series each in the middle of a 17-game stretch, with the trade deadline looming, like, this was going to be kind of a make or break week for them. And I think everybody knew that. Now, we didn't know James Wood was going to get hurt. You didn't know for sure they were going to trade away the guys that they did. But even if they had kept everybody, do you believe they would have survived this stretch given everything else? Probably not. And so maybe it was kind of destined to happen like this. And, there's an interesting discussion to be had of, let's say they had just kind of treaded water through all this and didn't gain any ground, but didn't lose any ground either. Would that have maybe been for the worse? Would it have given this false sense of a team that was on the verge of contention when maybe they really weren't? Maybe everything that's happened has kind of let everybody understand what the true situation was here. I don't want to sound too, negative about that, but it almost feels like this all explained to both the team and fans out there that while this has been an incredibly successful year. No matter what happens the rest of the way, it's been a success. And they're on the right track. But they're not there yet. And I think there's still a lot of work to be done for them to get there. And maybe they needed a stretch like this with all these negative things happening to them to finally come to that realization and acknowledge that.
The Nats in this game on Tuesday evening used just one reliever in terms of someone who was not an opener or bulk man. Trevor Williams, he tossed a scoreless bottom of the eighth despite giving up a leadoff single and despite giving up a 2-out double. Game 3 for the Nats at the Phillies Wednesday evening at 6:40. The Nats have listed Jake Irvin as their probable starting pitcher for the game. We got this email from Jay Gillespie of Stevens City, Virginia. Writes Jay in an email that we got on Tuesday night. Fun for the first half plus, but the next 2 months likely will be painful. Having said that, I do think Taboni and company are doing the right thing. I trust the approach, and while I'm tired of the extended rebuild like everyone else, I have confidence we're going in the right direction for the first time in several years. So we began the show with an ultra-negative email, try to end things with an at least semi-positive email. I am on board with Jay. I do think that Paul Taboni made the right call with the trade deadline. No one is thrilled about how things have played out here. And of course, it's going to take a while until we truly know if Taboni got good stuff in terms of what was acquired via the trade deadline. But I just think holding on to everything and crossing your fingers and, looking up at the baseball gods and hoping that somehow things all click and the Nats, make the postseason and make a run. I just don't think that that was the prudent way to go. I think it's going to be funny looking back on this season. It almost may be that the Nats were like too good for their own good, and that had they been a little bit worse, I think things would have been more palatable and more understandable in terms of how Taboni ended up handling that deadline. But I get it. Everyone is tired of guys being traded away. Everyone is tired of, carriages being turned back into pumpkins. And it kind of feels like that is what has happened here. And the other thing, too, is to whatever extent, you still want to pay attention to the wild card standings. The Nats have lost significant ground in the wild card standings. They've gone from being like, a game out, 2 games out, 2.5 games out, if you've been following that, to now being in the neighborhood of like 5 or 6 games out. Arizona hasn't played as we're taping this on Tuesday night, but that's significant in this jumbled up mess that is this NL wildcard race, even with so many of the teams being mediocre, to be 5-6 games out. That's a bad spot to be in at this point.
Yeah, I think it was 6.5, at least at the moment when this game ended. As you said, Arizona's still playing, which affects some of it. And just, as far as the trades go, I think what we've seen, I think it's easy to say that, yes, those were the right calls to make the trades. The real key to all this now is, did they get the right players in return? And that's the true test for Taboni. In Griffin's case, you can say, okay, well, they kind of had to trade him. They weren't going to sign him to an extension. He's going to be a free agent. The team is starting to fall apart. Okay, you got to sort of take whatever the best offer maybe was. We don't know, what else he was offered. But in the case of Garcia, they didn't have to do that right now. Obviously, in Curtis Mead's case, they didn't have to do that. I think most of us like what they got in return for him. But what's really going to be critical to all this is, out of that huge group of young, mostly pitchers that they acquired, how many of them become actual parts of what they're trying to do here, not just in the short term, but in the long term? Do they end up with 3, 4, 5 major leaguers who help them win down the road? If so, then yes, these were the right decisions. But there's the decision of making the trades, and then there's also the decisions of who you're getting back. And Paul Taboni still has to prove that he is good at getting good players back. There's a limited sample of the trades that he's made so far. We know the Ferrer and Ford trade hasn't been so great for them. We know the Mead trade, acquiring him, was really good. You think the trade of Mead to get Connolly early was good. But we still need to see how he does at his evaluations and then at their development and turning these guys into good major leaguers. It's going to be a little while till we know that, but hopefully by this time next year, we have a little bit of sense of whether these were successful trades or not.
Yeah, and there are questions about the Jake Bennett-Luis Perales trade for sure, with what Bennett has done for Boston this season. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. And as you know by now, you can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. Thank you for listening. Hang in there, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Paul DeYoung 1 for 3 in his rehab assignment with the Senators. Breaking ball lifted to deep right field. This has a chance to tie it. Celestino's going back, and that's gone. Pinckney homers into the back of the home bullpen the other way in right. We are deadlocked at 4 on the Red Wings' third solo home run of the ball game. Andrew Pinckney goes deep.
Sleep Number's new collections are designed to adapt to the changing nature of your life and your sleep needs. Whether it's the personalized comfort of the new Comfort Mode mattress, the targeted pressure relief of the Comfort Next mattress, or the Climate Collection that actively cools or warms to help you fall asleep and stay asleep.
And now, get early access to our biggest sale of the year. Save 25% on the new Comfort Next Luxe for a limited time. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.